Hi, we're with Leia Girard today, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about a particular world in which she operates that has very much to do with human trafficking. So, Leia, thanks for coming out and talking to us.
Yeah, no
We
problem.
know you're really busy these days, but we appreciate the effort. Give us a general overview of the organization you're with and how it operates.
Okay, so we started an organization called Zoe Center, Centro Zoe in Italian, in 2010. And we originally moved here as missionaries in 2003. So this was considered part of our mission. We began to see locally prostitutes in the evenings after church meetings, prayer meetings, and we're honestly blown away by the numbers we saw. So we were moved in compassion and wanted to know more about why those women were there and how they got there, what is their stories, what is human trafficking in Italy. I mean, a million questions went in our minds, so that's kind of how we started.
I mean, having started this so, I would say recently, I mean,
Yeah.
frankly, I mean, for such a kind of a heavy topic and being in the thick of it in the way that you are, as you'll explain to us, for this amount of time, I mean, do you feel like you're making changes? Do you feel like you're making inroads? Do you feel like your goals are being met?
Yeah.
Or is it just total frustration from the get-go?
Yeah, well, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And any difficult, I think, ministry work you're doing where there's trauma involved, you know, because everybody knows where there's human trafficking, prostitution, there's a lot of trauma. You have wins and loses. We have had a decent amount of success. Probably the hardest, most challenging thing is convincing the girls to trust us, that we are not associated with their traffickers, we are not corrupt, we are not there to exploit them, we are not there to use them in some way to make ourselves look glorious, or, I mean, even the fact that we can even help them, because some of the girls are so hopeless, they just, you know, assume there's just no way out.
They're going to resign themselves to this.
Exactly, yeah. So just hopelessness. So that's probably one of our most challenging things, because we do go out to the girls and meet them personally. My husband and I are in our small team. So it takes sometimes some relationship to be built, so you have to wait patiently for them to see that you're the good guys, because they were originally coerced into prostitution to begin with from a madam whom they trusted, who promised them a new life, promised them a way out of poverty, promised them a new world, and they ended up enslaving them into prostitution. So that's probably our biggest challenge. That takes a lot of time.
So the trust factor is something that is
yeah.
fundamental in moving
absolutely.
anything forward.
And some of them, they will trust immediately because they're so desperate. And they see our countenance is different. They can see, you know, our actions, our body language is different. We come bringing food, water, tea, real help. We give them religious material, as well as help numbers, as well as just books to read, just even practical things that would be helpful to them. Some girls, we give them coloring books. It sounds silly, adult coloring books, anything to help, just.
Yeah, sure.
So that's probably our greatest challenge. And then successes, yeah, we've had some girls who have chosen to leave the streets. Our ultimate goal with them is to see them restored in a safe house. So in Italy, we have several safe houses running. And I think maybe we've got about 10 girls off the streets. And out of the hundreds we've spoke to, it seems like a small number, but you know, every life counts, and they're connected to other women. So you have the chain reaction as well, where they have their old contacts, their old buddies they're on the streets with. So you just never know when they can be in contact then with other women or warn other women.
Sure.
So we have successfully gotten some girls off the streets, restored, get their documents, get an education, start a new life. Some are sent back to Nigeria because they don't want to stay in Europe. You know, they just want to go back to their homeland. And
well, tell us a little bit about I mean, I think most of us come from a world where we see this situation as something somehow associated with somebody who was duped, or somehow somebody was ignorant to the realities of what was happening. And I think any of us who've been in a situation, maybe certainly not as drastic as this, but certainly in a situation where we don't know how we're supposed to read the signs, end up in a bad situation. What really is the process by which these young women are enticed
Yeah.
or duped
Yeah.
or however you want to characterize that moment in which somebody suggested to it, probably somebody with a lot of trust that they had.
Yeah, of course.
What is this kind of supply chain, this chain reaction of,
Right.
how does this,
I know.
what does this look like?
Well, I'd say for the Nigerians, actually, and the Eastern Europeans, it's a pretty similar method. First of all, the madams or the scouters are looking for someone vulnerable, so they're coming from a broken home. They see them on social media flaunting their body, so just showing all the skin they want to the world. They're looking for girls coming out of abusive homes. Just got dumped by their boyfriends. So some of the things they're looking for, they're finding on social media. Because Facebook, like half these girls, are in some way on Facebook or Instagram. My boyfriend just left me, I don't need anything or anyone. So, they're looking for women that way. But most of it is they're physically going through the towns. They can be your grocery store clerk, looking for a woman who is complaining about being extremely poor in Nigeria, for example, coming from especially the tribal areas. So they'll go into the tribal areas. Oh, did you know that in Europe there's this amazing work field, I guess you can say. There's so many jobs available compared to Nigeria. We're so poor, there's no jobs. If you live in Nigeria, you're just going to be a farmer. What kind of education do you have, So they start with a lot of these questions, because they know the girl is already in a vulnerable state.
So many girls, they are jobless in Nigeria.
Of course, yeah, because there's a lot of poverty.
So
there's so much.
If one is jobless, when you heard that there is work in Europe,
of course,
can't you risk your life to pass the Libya to Europe?
So she came, and then once she was at the refugee camp, her madam called her and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no work for you right now. First, you have to prostitute, and for that passage over the sea, you have to give me 30,000 euro."
It's because I don't have work. That is why I'm still going to the street. If I have work today,
of course. No, of course.
If I have work today, I'll stop the street work.
No single girl I spoke with wanted to be there. They were saying, "What can you do for me? How can you help me?" They were saying, "Thank you for coming to see me. Nobody stops to give me something. They come to take from me."
So they are specifically looking for girls who are vulnerable, who feel like they're nothing, have basically zero self-worth. So a lot of those girls, now this isn't all the cases, okay?
Sure.
But I'd say in 80% of the cases, this is the situation.
This is very predatory.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And not only that, the stats have come out for years. About 90% of women in prostitution, whether trafficked or chose prostitution, were molested sexually. So, when you have who knows how many years of sexual abuse in the background, already, you can see it on them. They walk around, many of these women either try to act extremely tough, like, no one's gonna, mess with me, whatever. But deep down, they're just in constant self-defense. Yeah. So they know what they're looking for. It's very predatory. It's very organized. Because the madam threatens them before they leave. They do a voodoo curse in Nigeria. I mean, I'm not telling every single detail, but it'd be an hour-long interview. But in Nigeria, they do a voodoo curse where they vow never to tell an authority who brought them there, how they got there. They have to use sweat, blood, and it's horrific. They control them. So they control them, one, through that curse. 2, because they know where their family lives. So they threaten them right there, because the girls always say, "You're not going to make me work as a prostitute," on the phone. You're going to go meet Daria. I'm not a prostitute. Well, I know where your daughter lives, and your mother and your father, and they give them death threats. So that's ultimately how they can control the girls. So some girls actually choose, for the love of their family, to work to pay off the debt.
So what do you want to do right now? You want to find a job?
I want to stop this work.
Yeah.
I want to go to school, so I will know how to speak Italian very well, so I can look for a job.
The other girls we've got off the streets, you see, when we get them to a safe house, they cut all ties. Their family doesn't even know what happened to them. The best thing is that they disappeared, because then the madam, can't necessarily do much because she doesn't know what happened. But other girls don't want to risk that their family could be killed ultimately. So they will work. Many women have worked to pay off the 30,000 euro debt, and it takes about 5 to 10 years, depending on what city they're in, all the factors.
Sure.
I mean, a local story. I mean, we meet police officers when we're out, because Prostitution is illegal, but it's depenalized. So the women aren't getting fines, the men are getting fines for soliciting. And so we're often pulled over, assuming we're a man there soliciting sex. And so, we give them our documents, explain what we're doing, we're anti-human trafficking, finding girls, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So when we're pulled over by the police, they are often impressed with our mission. Most of them want to collaborate. They'll tell me even little things like, oh yeah, there's a girl that we believe is a minor, but we can't build our trust with her. She's working on this corner over there. Would you try to talk to her and let's help her? So there's a lot of empathetic cops for sure, definitely. So, you have the government work there. And then on a higher level, once the girls are sent to the safe house, they work with the government to get their documents. And there is a law that protects women who are trafficked. There are laws that protect them to get them their documents, to give them, how do you say, like soggiorno.
Right.
So
a place to stay.
Yeah, place to stay, exactly.
Are there any particular stories that you might be able to tell us that bring it down to, the human level? I mean,
Sure.
Is there a truly, success story that helps inspire other people to help?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, it was one of our most difficult success stories, but there was a girl, she's Romanian, and some years ago, let's see, this happened actually 3 years ago, but 3 years before that, she was encountered by another religious worker like us who was talking to girls in the red light zone of Germany. And she was giving her a card saying, call me if you ever need a friend. Sometimes we just do that simple, I'm here to be your friend. Just, here you go. Call me if you need me. It's that simple. She kept this business card. Okay. 3 years later, she found herself sold twice in Italy. But the guy who bought her here was an Albanian mobster, because I told you have the mafia involved. And he had just paid 13,000 euro for her. And she had been a prostitute for 6 years at that point. That was actually the third time she was sold. So she was sold 2 times before. This was the third time she was sold. But the man was so violent. He said, if you don't bring me 700 euro a night, I'm going to kill you. He was threatening her for 10 days. And she kept that card and called that girl. And she called me, because she knew I was in Italy. I called the workers in Naples. We're an enormous network. I mean, we are really all very connected, and you have to be, because, you're facing tough stuff. But when we knew that a mafia mobster was involved, it gets very dangerous. We had to be really careful. So within 48 hours, we had a plan set up to get this girl and hide her identities, of course. They set it up to pick her up as if they were clients during the day. They bought a separate telephone number to talk to her on this one telephone number. They rented a car. And it was quite the ordeal. So we picked her up, or they picked her up, the two of them, 5 o'clock. They didn't tell her anything, not where you're going.
So they knew that you would come along?
Yeah, well, they had already contacted her by telephone.
It.
They had called her on a secret number and said, hey, we're here to help you. Do you want off the streets? Yes, come get me. Oh. Okay, Thursday at 5 o'clock.
Wow.
All right. So, but when you're looking at the mafia involved, you never know who's watching or who heard her even just say that and is now going to be following us and, is listening in on the conversation. So it was quite dangerous. We were sweating bullets. Everybody was for the pickup, but they just drove up like a normal client and said, hey, I'm the person that called you, Tuesday morning, get in the car. She got in the car and they drove off. And then the protocols to take their phones away, all their phones, they can't have any contact with the outside world from that point on because it puts us in danger. So they actually drove her to our home because we were just quiet, like who would suspect them to bring a prostitute there? But we had confiscated all her information, all her phones and everything. And we, some girls, we really pat them down in the car, like, give me your phone. She gives us a phone, give me your second phone. Give me your third phone, because they're working on a lot of different phones. But she was someone who was genuine, was honest, she genuinely wanted out. So she gave us all her stuff. And they brought her to the house, and then she broke down her whole story. And that was just horrific, in the selling. She was the one who was tied to a tree in Germany for 3 days because she attempted escaping. And that was about the time that my friend, she had contacted my friend. So, that's the reality for these girls. When your owner is cruel enough, they'll do what it takes to keep you if you're a prostitute who brings in good money. And she was bringing in about 200,000 euro a year. So she was considered one woman. So she was considered top notch, experienced, knows what she's doing, knows how to talk to guys, whatever. But we got her to the safe house. She stayed for a year and a half. She actually had a daughter. While she was in prostitution in Spain, she was able to hide her daughter in Romania with a friend secretly in the mountains, so no one ever knew about her daughter, because that's the way they could have, threatened her to get her back if they knew where the daughter was, the leverage. And so she worked for about a year and a half through the trauma, through a lot of the pain of prostitution, and she moved back to Romania to start her life over, got a job, and so that's one success story. Really, emotional when it was all happening, but and she's still doing quite well. So if you're at a truck stop, you're just traveling, and you see a younger girl who is with maybe an older man or even an older woman, she looks uncomfortable, she looks distraught, she looks nervous, she's confused, maybe almost looks half drugged, because they are using forms of narcotics to calm the girls down. A great fake line I tell people to use is go up to the girl and say, "You look just like my cousin. Oh my gosh, like you have no idea. Can I take a picture of you and show it to my cousin? You'll never believe me." And if you see all of a sudden people become irritable and agitated, she might be a girl who's being trafficked, and they don't want photos. They don't want any, to be conspicuous. So yeah, you want to just, do something to irritate the situation. The person gets irritated, what did it cost you?
Right, exactly.
So yeah, just know, if you're ever suspicious in any way, just ask, be involved. Who cares? Even if in the end it's not a trafficking situation like you thought, and the mom comes over and is like, "Don't you take a picture of my daughter?" Okay, well, any organization, basically, any anti-trafficking organization has expenses. So even if a person is like, you know what, hey, I can give here, I can give there, that's always useful.
Yeah, someone might say, I don't necessarily feel comfortable going out on the streets at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, of course, right.
So, what can I do? But I want to do something.
Right.
I want to try to affect change.
Yeah.
So an opportunity like that might be very helpful.
And prevention measures, which what I was saying earlier, if you are preventing a potential human trafficking situation by just investigating for 1 minute of your time, checking on a girl online, because of the States, social media is a massive, it's a monster for human trafficking. They're looking on Facebook for girls who are lamenting about their boyfriends, their dads, their moms, their poor life. I don't have this, I don't have that. So they're looking for vulnerable girls. So, as you see those comments, posts, Instagram, your friends, your neighbors' friends, that's prevention work.
How has the pandemic affected this world of trafficking, and at least in this sphere that you're active in? Yeah.
No, shockingly, it changed the human trafficking world more than what we realized in that small amount of time, because the quarantine rules were so strict here. If you remember, nobody was allowed to leave their homes even at night, and so they were patrolling everywhere. If you're driving on the streets at night, man, you were pulled over. They don't want anybody out of their houses even in the day. So obviously clients aren't there to go meet their needs, so a lot of women moved online. So some of them moved online to just web sex, so live streaming.
So these women were moved online.
Well, they moved themselves because they still have.
They took the initiative.
They have bills to pay.
Be able to pay the bills.
They have they have to eat. You look at the situation, what it really is. No one's going to be there knocking. Oh, I heard you're out of work. Here, have a chicken. Except us. That's what we do. I'm delivering some chicken tonight. I'm serious. No one's doing that. So these are women who have to pay bills. They have to pay madams. They have to feed their kids in Nigeria, whatever, or wherever they came from. So they moved it on to either live web sex streaming, which in one way was easy and comfortable. Their bodies not being exposed to another potential STD or another potentially abusive situation. It's a lot easier, compared to physical sex, less humiliating. So, though we all know it's as damaging to the soul, to the mind, so it's not getting them out of the prison they're in. It actually might feed them even longer to stay in the system, because they could weigh it, oh, well, my body's not being used, so, why not just go forward 20 years like this? But we all know, that's almost as unhealthy. Thinking, and that's going to be harder to find them. It's going to be harder to reach them, because you're looking at finding private servers, coming in as a client disguised talking to them. So then you have the other girls who have moved to like a in-home brothel, which is illegal in Italy, but they still had the contact information from their clients. So in the daytime now, police weren't able to patrol as much as at night. So some men were able to leave and just, I'm going to work, whatever, and drive to the girls' home and, run it like a brothel.
So would it be safe to say that there's been an increase in this aspect?
Yes.
Because this is something that's always been a part of this.
Yeah, there's been an increase,
prostitution.
And it makes it harder to find the girls. And then for the police as well, they have to have warrants. They can't just bust in, they have to have some evidence and some warrants to see what's going on, because it is illegal to run a brothel from home. That they would bust. So all of us anti-trafficking workers are undergoing now a whole new level of training, which is great on one side. We want to be able to reach the girls, but I do find it seems to me to be a little bit harder.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us. I know these aren't easy topics, and
thanks for having me.
Your expertise is fundamental in understanding these things better and hopefully making changes.